It's almost the end of the year. We got 3 months until 2026, and you still have not started an investment account. This is Built by SMY, and on this channel, I usually do a series called Building the Brand, but recently I started an investment account for my LLC. I have a video on that, so if you want to check that out, go ahead. But today I'm going to just be talking about why I think you should start investing right now before the end of the year. I'll give you guys, I think, about like 10 different stocks and the reasons why I'm investing in these stocks. You know, this isn't, I want to say this at the beginning of the video, this is not financial advice, but these are some of the stocks that have performed well for me. The first thing that I want to talk about is if you are somebody like myself who is also working a 9-to-5 while running their business, or you haven't quite started your business yet and you are working a 9-to-5, I would highly recommend that you set up what is called a 401k. Now, you might be saying like, why would I want to set up one of those? The main reason is it is free money. Most companies will match you dollar for dollar for however much you invest into your 401k. So if you just set up your 401k to put in, let's say as little as $25 every single paycheck, 9 times out of 10, if you work for a decent company, they'll match that $25. So you might as well be taking advantage of that free money. And there's tax advantages to 401ks. They don't get taxed. And if you wait to take the money out, by the time that you're 65, they won't tax it at all. Now, one of the main misconceptions I think about 401ks is that you can't take the money out early. You can definitely take the money out early. It's your money. The only difference is you won't get the tax advantage of being able to take it out tax-free until you turn 65. That's one of the things that they want people, to have money for when they retire. That's kind of why they set up that tax code in the first place. If you already got a 401k, and you're thinking about, okay, I want to start investing, I'll talk about a couple of platforms that I personally use. For my business, I use Fidelity. The reason why I use Fidelity for my business, this was the only platform I could find that allowed small businesses with less than 500,000, because I reached out to Chase Investment. They told me you needed 500,000 to invest as an LLC. But with Fidelity, you could start it off with $0. That's how I started mine off with, and then I just started to deposit money. Video on that, so if you want to check it out, go ahead and check it out. But that's what I have for my LLC. Now, with my personal side, I have a 401k with my job. I have a HSA with my job, and with both of those accounts, my job matches pretty much whatever I put into those accounts. So I'm just taking advantage of that free money. But for my personal investments, I just do my investments with Chase. And the reason why I do it with Chase is just because it's super easy. As soon as I get paid with my job, I can withdraw. I usually try and do at least $200. I'll withdraw $200 and move it into my investment account, and it's all within the same app, and I don't have to overthink about it. But there are other platforms that you can go with, such as Robinhood, such as Webull. These are all, personal investment platforms that you can use. But again, the reason why I use Chase just because it's so simple to deposit. Whatever platform you end up deciding to go with, at this time you're thinking, okay, I got it all set up. I set my Fidelity up, or I set up my Robinhood, or I went ahead and activated my investment account on my Chase. Now, what do I do? What should I be investing in? Again, this is not investment advice, but I'll talk about a couple of stocks that have done well for me and some of the reasons why I am optimistic about their business and their growth. First stock that I want to talk about is called S&P 500. Now, the S&P 500 is not just one individual stock within the name. It's 500 of the best stocks trading on the stock market. And on average, this goes up between 10 to 20% every single year. I think this year the S&P 500 is up, I think almost 15%, if not more. And if not, I'm not 100% sure. I think it's close to 15% or a little above. But regardless, that's still good income to have that you don't even have to think about. It beats any high yield savings account. And on average, like I said, year over year is between 10 to 20%. So the S&P 500 of the best companies throughout the stock market that are within this one stock. Now, the next stock that I want to talk about is one of those companies that at this point, I think everybody has used, and that is Amazon. Now, you might be saying, okay, what exactly do you feel is growing in Amazon? There's a number of things that I would want to discuss if I were asked that question. So the first thing that I would say is their e-commerce platform. This is probably like the most commonly known platforms that Amazon owns. They deliver literally anything at this point. They recently purchased Whole Foods, so they own Whole Foods, so they deliver groceries through them. And then I think they also just have some of their like generic brands that they sell as well. Another platform that they own is Twitch. And if you heard anything about Twitch recently, and maybe you haven't heard about Twitch in particular, but 9 times out of 10, you've heard about streaming and the new streamers like Casanat. They purchased Twitch a while ago, actually, and that's one of those platforms that I just see growing, especially with the new content creators and also established content creators moving over to that platform after seeing the success of somebody like Casanat. So they own that platform. Then they also, one of their most profitable businesses is AWS Cloud. This is where they not only hold their data for their websites, they hold data for a ton of other businesses and all their websites as well. What is another thing Amazon owns? Yeah, Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime is a big one. They've recently partnered with the NFL and they do a lot of football games on Amazon Prime. They partner with the NBA and the WNBA, where you'll watch a lot of games that way. So they're just doing a lot throughout a whole bunch of different sectors. And I just see them continuing to platform, a variety of different business models and just continue to grow. Now, the next company that I want to talk about is Google. So all these companies I've talked about so far, I think are companies that are already recognizable. But again, they're doing things now that will allow for continual growth. So with Google is probably the number one competitor, in my personal opinion, to OpenAI at the moment. And me personally, I find myself using Google more frequently on a day-to-day basis to answer quick questions versus like with Google, it's like I'm already using my browser all the time. So if I type in something on Google to get a quick answer, it's quick. Versus I feel like sometimes if I gotta go to ChatGPT, I gotta open the app, I gotta start a new chat, I gotta get it warmed up. I don't know. I just feel like it's more of a hassle using OpenAI's ChatGPT versus just going straight to Google. So I think Google is one of those businesses that has been around for a really long time. They've already have tons of data when it comes to building out their AI models. And then on top of that, they're doing a lot of research. So they're not just focusing on a chat bot. Like they have DeepMind. They have a variety of other different ways that they're utilizing AI for like research and all those different things. And then plus they just have the money and infrastructure. So if you already have a system in place, on top of that, you have money to spend. Like Google has been around since pretty much the beginning of the internet, and they've made ton of money in the 2000s with the internet bubble, and it looks like they're using those same strategies to make a ton of money in this AI bubble. The next stock I want to talk about is called AMD. Now, I used to be really, really big on only NVIDIA, and NVIDIA is a company that creates like the brains. This is what I always said. They create the brains of AI. Like they're creating the chips that help AI perform the way that it does. And their only competitor really is AMD. But the problem with AMD is that they were not creating chips that performed on the same level as NVIDIA. But recently they have began to roll out chips that have the same capability as NVIDIA. And with that, you got big companies like OpenAI, who makes ChatGPT. They invested into They invested into AMD recently. And with them investing into AMD, I think that means a lot of things. But the most important, in my personal opinion, is if AMD, let me make sure this mic, because it's kind of flashing. I'm going to switch mics real quick and pick this back up. sure we're like in the same spot. But if AMD is able to show that ChatGPT can perform the same level that it was able to perform on as it was with NVIDIA chips, then other startups and other companies will begin to use AMD chips just because they're a lot cheaper than NVIDIA chips. So I just see tons of growth in the near future because OpenAI, ChatGPT will not be the only AI company that comes out. It's tons of startups working on it. Then you got other big companies like Google, Microsoft, Apple, which is kind of behind, but you got tons of companies that will need more AI chips. And the only two companies that are building them is NVIDIA and AMD. And AMD is a lot cheaper than NVIDIA. So tons of growth in that one right now. It was just at like $160 a share, and it just shot up after the news that ChatGPT, OpenAI had invested into them, and now it's at like $230, $240 a share. Again, don't think about the stock price, just buy with dollars, because regardless, if it goes up a certain percentage, you'll make the same percentage amount as somebody who had more money than you. Don't think about the dollar amount. The next company that I want to talk about is Meta, aka Facebook, aka Instagram, aka WhatsApp. Like, Meta owns all those companies. It originated as Facebook, but they've been expanding, and those are three companies that I know they own, but I'm sure they own a ton of more companies. And I'm not super excited about any of those companies individually, but the thing that I'm super excited, I guess would say, is with their AI's tool to present products to customers. So again, I own a brand and I spend a lot of money with Facebook and Facebook ads. And once upon a time, like, somebody like me probably could not run ads effectively unless I spent tons and tons of time learning and tons of hours just learning how to target to certain audiences and all that. Nowadays, with the AI system, as long as you have a good product, some good content, some good pictures, some good videos, whatever the case may be, you put it into Facebook ads, their AI system will find you a customer. Now, depending on how good the price is, how good the product is, will determine how many sales you'll get. But regardless, they will find you somebody who's interested in that product to buy that product. And I think this just revolutionizes the ability for new businesses to start and be able to get sales and generate new customers. And I think they're doing a great job. And they're the only platform that I know of right now that has like a super well-built ad system. Now, the next company that I want to talk about is going to be Shopify. Now, I've always been a fan of Shopify, and I just think Facebook ads and Shopify kind of go hand in hand. 9 times out of 10, if somebody is running Facebook ads, they're using it to drive it to their Shopify store. So whatever growth that you probably see within Facebook on the advertisement side will reflect directly to Shopify. 9 times out of 10, that's where it's directing it to. And some of the biggest companies that you probably have heard of or bought from actually use Shopify to host their website. That includes Skims with Kim Kardashian. That includes Fenty or Savage with Rihanna, and a number of other companies. Those are just a few big name like influencer brands that I know that run their websites through Shopify. Supreme is another one, a super big streetwear brand. They use Shopify. So a lot of big companies are using Shopify. And again, if Facebook is driving the ads, it's usually getting driven to Shopify. So I just feel like those work hand in hand, and I love all the tools that Shopify has. I like their shop app. So a lot of people who shop on there, they download the shop app and they shop that way. And I feel like it's a competitor with, Amazon to a certain extent, or any like retailer, honestly, them having their own app. And then they have their apps within their platform, which allow other people like developers to make money. So just a huge ecosystem going around with Shopify. Now, the next company that I want to talk about is Celsius. Now, this one is different than the last couple of businesses that I talked about. Celsius, they actually make energy drinks. And you might be like, energy drinks? Like in America, caffeine is one of those things that people are not stopping to buy anytime soon. Like if it's coffee, if it's energy drinks. And the thing with Celsius is it presents at least as a healthier alternative to uh Red Bull or Monster Energy. And one way that I would say that is the case is not only does on the bottle it says no high fructose corn syrup, no added dyes and all those type of things that most healthier people would say like, okay, it's a slightly better alternative than these other things, is you can find it in stores like Whole Foods and Sprouts. And if you shop at those stores, for sure, like you cannot go to Sprouts or Whole Foods and buy some flaming hot Cheetos. Like they don't sell certain products for whatever reason. I don't know what the stipulation for them carrying products are, but they don't sell certain quote unquote unhealthy products, but they do sell Celsius. So I feel like they're targeting a certain demographic that usually has a lot more money to spend on groceries, in my personal opinion, so they could sell their energy drink for slightly higher. I think they've done a lot of acquisitions as well. They recently acquired Rockstar Energy. They own, I think it's called Aloha Energy Drink, which is another energy drink that's similar to Celsius. They partner with Pepsi, so wherever you see Pepsi products, you'll likely see Celsius products. So I just see them having tons of room for growth. Whenever I go to the gym, that's what I see people who are working out drinking. They're drinking Celsius, and I've drank Celsius, and I'll say for one, with Celsius, one thing for sure is you will be up after you drink a Celsius. That's why I kind of don't like drinking it, if I'm being honest. But if you need to be up, like the most I've drank Celsius was when I was working my last job and I was doing a lot of overtime. I would drink a lot of Celsius, honestly. Not like a lot, but I would drink a can of it anytime I had to do overtime. So it's definitely keeping you awake. It tastes pretty good. And again, it's slightly healthier than your alternatives like Red Bull and Monster Energy. The next company that I want to talk about is Elf Beauty. Now, again, this isn't like the first few stocks I was talking about, kind of like in the technology field, but you want to kind of diversify anyway. And with Elf Beauty, just like Celsius and just like all the other companies that I've talked about, they're doing acquisitions that show that they have potential for growth. So one of their recent acquisitions was of Justin Bieber's wife, Hailey Bieber. She recently did a makeup line. And if you know anything about makeup lines, like with Kylie Jenner, with Rihanna, with Fenty, like they have a lot of potential to make money. And with her first drop, she did more than Fenty, which is saying a lot because Fenty, I know, was extremely popular when it was released. So they acquired her company, and I know they acquired a lot of other companies that fit kind of like that demographic in particular. So they're doing a lot, and Elf is also more on the budget side. You can find them in Walmart, your convenience stores like Walgreens and stuff like that. And it's just like a brand, like if somebody isn't super into makeup or super into those kind of products and stuff like that, that's probably something that they'll go for on an entry level. So I feel like they have a broader base, but at the same time, they're acquiring these very niche makeup companies that have a lot of, potential for growth. All right, so I don't know how many companies I've done so far. I'll talk about a few more, I think, and then kind of wrap this video up. I think this might be the last one. The last one I want to talk about is Cheesecake Factory. And again, not like any of the technology companies I talked about so far, but again, if you want to diversify, this is one of those companies. One of the main reasons I like the Cheesecake Factory and any company that I choose to invest in is because of their acquisitions. If a company is not acquiring, is not expanding beyond just their business, it's probably not a business that you want to be a part of. And with Cheesecake Factory, not only do they own one of the most well-known like restaurants in the US, I would say they began to expand and acquire and, have different brands underneath their major brand. And some of the companies are Flower Child, North Italia, and if you're in other cities, you'll notice they have a lot of other like less well-known brands that are quote unquote high-end restaurants. And I noticed that when I was living in Dallas, it was a lot of smaller quote unquote 4 or 5-star restaurants that were really owned by the Cheesecake Factory. And a lot of people who probably frequented or visited these restaurants probably wouldn't even know it. But that's one of the big things, and one of the main reasons why I see a lot of growth potential is because they're expanding, but not just with the Cheesecake Factory. They're expanding with more higher end, high scale restaurants to target a demographic that's okay with spending, $100 for one person at a restaurant. And I feel like in the restaurant industry, that's probably the demographic you want to be in. You don't want to be on the budget side. You want to be on the higher end kind of clientele. But I think those are some good stocks if you are just getting into stocks that you should start looking into. Right now, we might be experiencing a downturn in the stock market temporarily, but when the stock market goes down, one of the things that I've always heard and always stuck with me is when stocks are down, that means stocks are on sale. So if the stock market does go down in the next few months, all that means is instead of you having to pay $200 for Google, if all you got to pay is $100 now, you got it on a discount. So go ahead and invest and keep investing. Make sure if you haven't already and you are working a 9-to-5, you're investing and getting free money with your 401k, whatever your company offers, go ahead and take advantage of that. It's not the end of the year yet. Go ahead and start. Talk to your manager, talk to the HR department at your job. Go ahead and get started. And if you're a full-time entrepreneur, I would highly recommend setting it up with your LLC with Fidelity, just because that's the one place that I found that allowed smaller businesses to start an account. And if you're doing it personally, you have tons of options, from Robinhood to Webull to Fidelity to Chase to Acorn to SoFi to even like Cash App. You can invest through so many platforms nowadays. Just get started, buy a couple of stocks, set it up for reoccurring deposits. If that just be $5 every week, if that's $20 every 2 weeks or whenever you get paid, if it's $100, whatever you got to set aside, it makes more sense for you to have $100 that could potentially grow to $150 over the next few months in a investment account versus just having that $100 sit for the next 3 months in a savings account and it not grow at all, or you maybe made like 10 cents off of interest. Like it really does not make sense. So start investing. Not the end of the year yet. If you're interested into small business investing, building a brand, style, content, make sure you check out the channel. But as always, this is Built by SNY, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.